Hi everyone, this is the December 16 update of the Civpay analysis tool just before the training event we're going to have at the Joint Base San Antonio uh, in the first week of December. So instead of doing a completely new video series, we haven't changed materially how this works, but there are some updates that we pulled from lessons learned and some other things. So wanted to get those updates out to you, and the template will be updated as well. Watch the other videos to kind of see the build and construct and the ideas to gain familiarity and comfort level if you're going to be using this tool. But I'm just going to show you what we've updated since the last time. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'll work from right to left here. In these tables, we've gone through and just made sure all these pay hour codes are reflecting what we understand to be the most current and accurate in terms of do these pay hour codes count towards hours worked. We have pulled out these awards and incentives based upon the fact that we want to, and this was in the other one, that we want to be able to see awards separately from things like lump sum leave. We added a passcode table such that you can update your 4-digit passcode and enter in the representative squadrons or flights so that you can see your members per the R60 as to where they're assigned, work with your HR satellite a little bit easier with the manpower PCN as well. And then we have this over here. So what this does is it updates and it links back to the work years for the total amount of hours in a work year. Now we find that with OMBA 11 is where it's published out 3 years in advance, I believe, and NGB guidance also updates it annually. Last year on a leap year we were at 2096, and when we teach this template we're going to show the entire fiscal year of 16 for the 115th Fighter Wing. But what this does is it takes a calculation out of the background that you never used to see. It was hard coded into a pivot table calculation, so unless you knew to go in there and update it, you wouldn't know, and then it would throw your figures off. So when you update the front end of this Civpay tool for FY17, which is going to be 2080 instead of 2096, it's going to update that work year factor so that your numbers are going to be reflecting as accurately as possible for our projection. So that's what this table does. Once you update the figure in the work year execution tab, it will update this as well. Okay, moving on to the raw data itself. I talked about that hours and pay period. This is how we have to slam that in there to get it to pull into the pivot properly, but it takes that thought out of there for you to have to go into the guts and re-hard code something. So that's what that is. Here's your squadron lookup based on passcode, so we can build reports off of that. As before, we're using Marvel superheroes or whoever these people are to protect the innocent. Lump sum leave issues, we've kept that unchanged, and the rest of this is unchanged. So please watch the other videos if you're unfamiliar with what all of these different columns mean. They are still in the other videos. Temps, I don't believe we changed anything here. We do see a full year's worth, so we're seeing those periods in which the temps were there. Filtered to A, B, and C, no change as well. It's counting how many we have on board at any given pay period. LSL and awards, this is changed up slightly, I believe. We added the squadron back in with the employee name. It's going to show you your lump sum leave, where it's coming from. Second shift, it'll also show the awards if there were to be any paid, so that is there. Employee hours, nothing changed here. Same thing, it's going to highlight whenever we're not looking at something less than an 80-hour pay period to give you a quick heads up. It doesn't necessarily mean something was wrong. There could have been adjustments from prior pay periods that needed to happen, in which case they'll show. But if there are some weird things going on when we put our Marvel superheroes in here, that's why these are 160 and things like that, because we double counted some names. So when you upload your data, you'll see it. LOA Recon. This one has changed slightly. So what we did is we said, hey, is there an issue? And if there is, say true. So we can filter and unfilter based upon issues or not issues. So it is a line of accounting audit. So we can say issue, well, true. Show me all the ones that say true for the most current pay period or whichever pay period you select. So you can go back in time as well with the slicers, or you can just open it wide open, or you can unselect this, and so what this does is it allows you to see the most current pay period, your entire manning document in terms of the R60. So it's going to show you your manpower PCN, the PEC per, PEC PIF that it's assigned to. So you can take this with your passcode or squadron, and you can change this pivot if you want to do it by squadron. It really depends on how your HR satellite looks at their manning document, how they track it, and then doing those 3821 audits that we're required to do. So we can take something like this squadron and put it in the front if that's how your HR looks at it, or you can keep it just like this, and that those manpower PCNs are mic'd up right against the person's name, the PEC PERS, the PEC PIF, all that stuff they should be tracking, and then you're validating with them with those audits. So that was the update to this one, but as it comes it'll be to the trues, so you can also go back and say, hey, we've got PEC, PEC PER, PEC PIF issues. So that's where we've gone with this one. Slight update, but I think it's very nice to be able to unfilter and be able to use this printed off for that 3821 validation as well. Hiring plan, there is no change here. We made a few notes in the projections here. So if we're changing employees, we're still adding 2, or we're subtracting 3 in the terms of projection. Since we're looking at the entire prior fiscal year, this is all blue, but if it were in yellow, that means that when you enter things in here, then they will count towards your projected hours in the work year execution tab. So you want to be aware of that, and also you want to be aware that you update this cell right here, and then that will update all of the other things. And then LWOP, I'm not sure we talked about it in the other videos, but I did want to make you aware, as we go through these RCPs and we're deploying many more people, you can, in this note, of course, add positive amounts. If you say, I know 10 people are coming with LWOP next pay period because they've turned in their paperwork, then you can account for that wherever it needs to be in terms of hours, so 80 hours per pay period per person. Or if you know that 5 people are coming back on a certain day, then you can add a negative amount in here. And that negative 2096 in this case will be one whole pay period in this. So it's going to be helping you with your projection if you think that you've got 30 technicians out and they're going to come staggering in and stop being on LWOP. Well, your current execution is going to reflect them not being here, and then you're going to spike again. So if you were to have hired a lot of people to backfill, and then they come back and you don't have plans to perhaps let some of your temps go or make other arrangements, you could over execute if you don't plan for their return. And then finally, on the work year execution tab, a few updates, and we've tried to be better about making some notes in here. So there are the same notes for how much is NGB funding, hours and pay period. Go look at OMBA 11 or the NGB guidance. And then let me zoom in here. So on these tabs where you're actually filling in, the yellow is where you enter your own data. Of course, we have our standard, what's your current fiscal year authority, what was last year's gross obligations for Civpay. We're still working off that number as a basis for you for limitations and awards limitations. That's what these figures are still. The non-R60 expense. These are going to be things that don't hit your R60 report. So if you PCS somebody and it costs $50,000, for example, those are going to be specific EECs that hit in your appropriation systems, BQ deems, but it's not going to hit in your R60 necessarily. So you want to make sure you're accounting for that so that you're not over executing work years based upon that. Another change that we made here is projection assumptions. It's still a radio button, so you can say, hey, give me just take all fiscal year, just continue no matter what, use either the adjusted work year cost or the work year execution, just flat out give me everything. Or in this case, what we're going to say is, before it was 3 pay periods, or the one previous pay period, I think it was 3. Now we're going to allow you to, and there's a note in here, allow you to select how many pay periods back. So, for example, money-wise, if you felt like these going back, these 4 were the most representative, and some of these that are in the almost 1 million and so forth are not representative, then what we want to do is enter 4 in there. And that's going to tell you, okay, my projection is going to start with the 8/20 pay period, and I'm going to get all these, and then I'm going to use that average, the average of those 919. Whereas if I were to say 6, I would have been using the average of the 7/23 pay period, and then I would be extrapolating 941. So that's what that is. And if you want to use that, say the last pay period is exactly what I expect, change that to 1. Change this to set number of pay periods for projection instead of this radio button, and then your work years and your dollar figure projections will be based off of 1 pay period or 6 pay periods back, whatever it is that you feel is most representative. So that's one change. I took out the button for the VBA to save the report. If you want to re-add it and pull that VBA off our website and put it back in, no problem. But I did take it out. The refresh report is still the same. It's just going to refresh it for you. Any other changes here? So we made notes with respect to where are these coming from. So trying to just be more explanatory, more explicit with respect to where these projected numbers are coming from. So read through those, get comfortable with it. If you're anything like me, it took a few times going through it and just trying to get my head wrapped around what makes things change. Here's another change that we did prior, and it's a big change. So prior we used the assumption that, hey, we've got money for UFERs and we're going to spend it, so we're just going to put it in your projected work year execution. That is not the case this time. We're still going to pull awards when they happen. But if there are none, in this case, so if I scroll up, this is awards, no awards for the whole year, then it'll say 0. What you can do is, if your wing commander says, we're going to use 80,000, no matter what, no more, no less, spend it all, or whatever the case is, you can put 80,000 in there, and it's going to now use that up in your projections, and it's going to tell you how many work years worth of money you have left, essentially. Whenever you see that 80,000 come to fruition, just take that 80,000 out so you're not over assuming, and then it'll be there because it'll get accounted for here. So we're not just pushing in your UFER limits in there just automatically. So that is a change you want to take note of. And this yellow box, another thing where you can use for projection purposes to make sure you lock that money up in your numbers so that you're not hiring people based on awards that have not hit yet. Okay, and then over here, as you can see, a whole fiscal year, we put some formulas in here to blank this out, because if you're in the last pay period, it's going to say you can hire 1,000 people, which is maybe true by the numbers, but it's ridiculous. And so once you get to that final pay period, these just become nothing, because it's not really something you're going to be worrying about to hire right away for the last pay period. And then here we did put back in this formula for the average. So now when you change this radio button, not only does it change in here in terms of your work year projections, see if I highlight in here, it's highlighting those work year executed numbers for your projection. If I highlight in here now, it's going to highlight these. So if I change that to 2 pay periods, and I'm going to get the average of these 2, and so on and so forth. So those are the changes to the Civpay tool. If you need any further information, please, if you're at the course, just ask the questions and email one of us, or use the SharePoint to try to understand it better and watch through the videos. All right, thanks.